Thank you for joining the webinar, The Business Case on Food Waste Prevention. We are really excited to have you today. We have great speakers, including Erin Nichols, who is a Senior Manager of the City of Vancouver, and Benjamin Lefilibert, who is Managing Director at Light Blue Consulting and co-founder of The Pleasant Food Waste. Just while we're waiting a few more participants, I would like to just remind you that this webinar is recorded for all the people who may not be able to attend today. So feel free to turn off the video if you don't feel like being recorded. Apart from this, so I would like to start quickly with a small quiz, just while we're waiting for a few more people to join. So first question is, what's your favorite way of social distancing? So it's kind of an icebreaker, but so A is like the sticker on the floor, B is this huge buoys, C is the COVID hats, and D is having like one distance out of two for the table. C has preference for the huge buoys apparently, so I'm gonna wait. All right, and I'm gonna end this poll. And yeah, the huge buoys definitely have the most people like are in favor of this, so that's great. So thank you so much for this. And the second question I have before we are still waiting is basically in Canada, how much % of food produced is being wasted? Knowing with that in the world, around 40% of food produced is being wasted. So in Canada, how much of food produced is being wasted across the whole supply chain? So this is namely a study which has been done like last year, and basically I'm going to end the poll and share the results, but most people realize that 58% of food produced in Canada is wasted, so it's a huge amount. So there is a really big opportunity in terms of not only like environmental benefit, but also financial benefit as well. And last question before we start our webinar is, for an average food service business in BC, how much does it represent in the cost of wasted food, knowing that profits is on average 5% of revenues. So the food waste, how much of revenues does it represent for an average business in BC? Just accepting a few more people. And I'm gonna end the poll in a couple of seconds. So most people in the webinar today think that it's the same amount of profits, but actually it's more than profits, because 7% of revenues is actually wasted foods on average in British Columbia. So it's a huge, it has a huge impact on the bottom line of businesses, and we're going to talk more about this a bit later during this webinar. So thank you so much again for joining. So this webinar is organized by Rethink2gether. We are a sustainability consulting company based in Vancouver with an expertise in food waste prevention. With Ben, myself, and Laura, my business partner, who is also part of this webinar. And our client.
Hello, everyone.
And our clients are the food service industry, consumers, and governments. And so we focus on food waste prevention. That's for our core expertise, but we also support like feeding people and all recycling ways to deal with food waste. And last but not least, just our mission is really to help and inspire food businesses, consumers, and decision makers to see that food is too valuable to waste, supporting them to make wiser choices. So now it's time to start a great webinar. So thanks again to Erin Nichols from the City of Vancouver, and Benjamin Lefilibert, who is based in Thailand, So it's very early for him, and thank you so much for joining here our webinar. And so first we're gonna just quickly introduce like why we should work, why we should work on waste. And just before we start doing this, I would like to basically know a bit more about yourself, people who are joining you. So I have three quick questions. So where are you joining? Where are you based right now? Are you in British Columbia, in Canada, in other countries? What's the best way to define yourself? Are you working in food and hospitality? Are you working for governments, or are you a consumer fighting food waste? And how has the pandemic impacted the amount of food you're wasting? Do you have less food waste than before? It didn't have any change, or do you have more food waste than before? So I'm gonna just leave everyone the chance to finalize the survey. So basically we have approximately half of the people joining are from British Columbia, and 1/3 from Canada, and 20% from other countries as well. 50% are food and hospitality professional, a quarter from government, and a quarter from consumers. And the pandemic has impacted less food waste in general, like that's the majority of the answers. And so I guess it's also because like the demand has been decreased. So for sure, this has a huge impact of the amount of wasted food. But so just to remind you, like why as well it's important, because the cost of wasted food are worth 7% of annual revenues, like in a general situation, like apart from a global pandemic. So it's a great opportunity to like to make some saving and to recover from this pandemic in the future. If food waste for a country, it will be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter. So it's actually a very powerful tool to fight climate change. And also, like over the years, food waste has gained more and more momentum. Like there are the United Nations Development Goals who have set 50% food waste reduction targets by 2030. And Vancouver has been really active in food waste management, because composting is mandatory since 2015, actually, which is great. And since then, a lot of businesses have started to measure food waste, to set some food waste targets, and to implement some food waste reduction program, realizing that it's really important and it's really affecting the bottom line. So it's a great way to have a positive impact, not only on economic, social, and environmental aspects. And the city of Vancouver has also committed to become zero waste by 2040 and to be a leading city in food waste prevention. And so that's actually a great transition with Erin Nichols, who is a senior manager zero waste for the city of Vancouver, who is working very closely, namely with retailers like this year, and who's going to share a bit more about food waste from the city's perspective.
Great. Thanks, Ben.
So, Erin,
so thank you for inviting me to speak today about the City of Vancouver's efforts to reduce food wastage and achieve our Zero Waste 2040 goals. Ben's going to flip to the next slide for me. He's going to be my slide guy. As Ben mentioned, we have Zero Waste 2040. In 2018, the Vancouver City Council adopted the Zero Waste 2040 strategic plan as a way to move the city as a community to zero waste disposed by 2040. A priority area of focus of the strategic plan is wasted food. Next slide, please. And here's why. An estimated 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted globally each year. 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption, and 1.4 billion hectares of food, that's 28% of the world's agricultural area, is used annually to produce food that is lost or wasted. And Ben has already quoted greenhouse gas emissions from food loss and waste is the third largest GHG emitter. Next slide, please. So the Zero Waste 2040 strategy joins several Vancouver initiatives to address the wastage of food in the city and region. For over 20 years, the city has supported backyard composting as a means of diverting kitchen organics from landfill, such as vegetable peelings, eggs, shells, and coffee filters. Between 2010 and 2013, the city expanded the residential green bin pickup program to include all types of food scraps, including fish, meat, and dairy. And around 2015, the City of Vancouver and Metro Vancouver implemented regulatory requirements banning the disposal of food scraps with garbage and requiring all properties, including businesses, to have programs in place to divert their compostable organics. Next slide, please. To further understand where food is being wasted and in what quantities along the supply chain in Canada, let's look at data from the avoidable crisis of food waste. Of the 35.5 million metric tons of food that is wasted in Canada annually, 32%, or 11.2 million metric tons, is avoidable. That is enough food to feed everyone in Canada for almost 5 months. Next slide, please. The portion of food loss and waste that is unavoidable and avoidable is different by sector. In production, as a percentage of overall wasted food in Canada, 22% is considered unavoidable and 2% avoidable. Next slide, please. While for Canadian hotels, restaurants, and institutions, it is nearly even, with 8% considered unavoidable and 7% avoidable. Next slide, please. So what is the current knowledge about avoidable food loss and waste in Vancouver? Studies show that while Vancouver is doing a great job of not throwing wasted food in the garbage, still about 66% of the food and food scraps that are disposed to garbage or green bins in our homes and businesses is actually avoidable food waste. And that's based on 2016 numbers. So actions to address wasted food are guided by the food recovery hierarchy, which many of you are probably familiar with. Composting is just one step better than landfill on the hierarchy. And composting alone won't get us to zero waste. There's more that we can all do. The city is advocating for upstream solutions at the top of the pyramid, like source reduction and food rescue for human consumption. Next slide, please. These are identified in 3 key actions in the Zero Waste 2040 plan. The first one involves the city joining the Canadian National Love Food Hate Waste program as a partner with the National Zero Waste Council. Next slide, please. We joined the program in 2018, and in doing so, are now supporting Canada's national campaign to inform consumers on the problem of wasted food and encourage behavior change. Next slide, please. The second key area of zero food waste actions in Vancouver's Zero Waste 2040 plan is to improve food rescue and redistribution systems. Next slide, please. The city's work with grocery stores, which Ben mentioned, began in September 2019 and has contributed to food recovery efforts in the city. 9 grocery store brands completed 4 sessions. The activities included facilitating conversations about food waste prevention, food rescue, and other food waste interventions, encouraging grocers to identify, design, and test prototype solutions to change business practices that generate wasted food. Through this process, the city learned that food recovery and measuring the food that is donated contributed to understanding the scale and source of surpluses and are steps towards source reduction and prevention. Next slide, please. The third key area is to become a leading city in food waste prevention. Next slide, please. So the work we do in the city is in line with international goals. The Sustainable Development Goal 12.3, which has already been mentioned, has set the pace for food waste reduction on a global basis. Next slide, please. Vancouver is a participant in the Pacific Coast Collaborative, which spans the length of Cascadia. And for those who are not familiar with Cascadia, that's the province of British Columbia, the state of Washington, the state of Oregon, and the state of California. And in 2016, the Pacific Coast Collaborative jurisdictions committed to reduce carbon emissions by preventing and recovering wasted food. So next slide, please. Vancouver is also a member of the International C40 Cities Initiative. And in 2018, 23 pioneering cities and regions, including Vancouver, committed to significantly cut the amount of waste they generate, accelerating them on the path towards zero waste. Next slide, please. The landscape of food loss and waste in Canada is dynamic. Here is an overview of some of the stakeholders in this space that we are connected to and who are connected to each other. The city can't reduce food wastage on its own. It's largely up to the broader community, including the ICI sector. That's industry, commercial, and institutions. We're here to support, help guide the way, and leverage new opportunities. Next slide, please. How do you see your business contributing? Oh no, backwards, please. Back. How do you see your business contributing? What actions do you already take to achieve zero waste in your own operations? Next slide, please. So, Vancouver has a circular future. As I've said, recycling, composting, and prevention are all important steps to addressing food waste. We're expanding our focus to include upstream initiatives to reduce waste and ensure materials remain in circulation. We're also looking at options for recovering and beneficially utilizing materials that are still being thrown away. The city, in collaboration with the Vancouver Economic Commission, is developing an RFP to research Vancouver's food system and to map our way to a circular economy of food. Next slide, please. So I look forward to hearing your questions and comments, and I believe that that someone like Laura or Ben are going to be facilitating those questions.
Yes, if you have any question, you can add that in the chat, please, and we will read that.
And if you have any question, like we can have some room for like 2 or 3 questions, and but if you we'll have a round of question at the end as well. So thank you so much, Erin, for this great insight and for this great vision of being really a zero waste city by 2040 and being a leading city in food waste prevention. That's really exciting to have this very ambitious vision, and it's something that all of us we are really we think it's a great step forward in the right direction. So thank you so much, Erin, for sharing this thoughts.
You're very welcome, Ben, and thank you for putting on this webinar.
Yeah, with pleasure. So now, if there is no like burning question, we're gonna have a session at the end for additional questions. If there is no one right now, feel free to put any of your questions in the chat as well. Like Laura is gonna record all your questions, and we're gonna answer all of them as well. I see there is someone, but otherwise, I think Benjamin, we can. I can pass it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Ben. Let me share my screen then.
Oh, I just have a, so maybe like a question in just in the meantime while you're sharing your screen. So I see a comment, amazing data collection and action has been taken by the city of Vancouver. Still, I am very shocked on how much food has been wasted in eco-friendly known Vancouver City. Do you have any specific plan or action this year or next year to decrease the amount of food waste, like promoting like a certification, like I think that the pledge on food waste. And another question is, I have a question about the unavoidable food waste as a consumer. What constitutes the unavoidable food waste for each sector? What constitutes the avoidable food waste? So maybe Erin, you want to take this?
Okay, so I guess I'll take the first question first. Thoughts for the future. We are actually in the midst of sort of crafting what will happen in 2021. I'd be able to answer that question if the pandemic hadn't hit. As many of us were pulled off. I was actually working for the Emergency Operations Center, looking at the food supply chain and what was happening within the food supply chain due to the pandemic. But I think what we're learning and what we've seen globally is that awareness is important, but behavior change is the most important. And we're looking at how we can implement behavior change methodologies to support behavior change both in industry and with residents. And as far as the question about the difference between avoidable and unavoidable food waste, and also address food loss. Food loss happens upstream at the farm and processing levels and manufacturing. But as soon as it gets into our distribution network that feeds our restaurants and our grocery stores, that becomes food waste. So they made a distinction between food loss and waste when they developed guidelines to address these issues. As far as avoidable or unavoidable, in our own homes, I guess the best thing to say would be, eggshells and well-used tea bags and coffee grounds, apple cores are examples of food scraps that would be considered unavoidable. Now, I don't know if you've watched other people eating apples, but some people go right down to the very core, and others just eat the majority of the middle and then discard that. So even the definition of avoidable or unavoidable is quite subjective. But the city is very focused on the avoidable portion, and those are the leftovers that are abandoned in the refrigerator and are thrown out, composted. Those are the canned goods that people feel insecure about eating when they're past the best before date, and so they're discarded. And those kinds of foods that were intended and are in good enough shape to actually eat. And I always find it hard to talk about it as food waste, because who wants to eat food waste? What it really is, it's food wastage, the act of wasting food that we're needing to address. So I hope that helps to clarify and answer those questions.
Thank you so much, Erin, and we're going to have some more time later on for more questions. So Benjamin, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Erin, as well. Laure, good to see you back as well. It's been a little while. So thank you very much for hosting me today. So just to give a bit of perspective, so I'm the founder of Light Blue. I started Light Blue in 2012. We have been working almost exclusively on the topic of food waste prevention in the hospitality sector since we started Light Blue. So far we've been running something around 45 projects on food waste prevention in 5 different countries. We estimate that we help to rescue, to save, or to avoid around 1 million kilos of food from being wasted since 2015. And this is an overview of basically the type of collaborators that we work with, or type of organizations, knowing that some things are interestingly enough, things are happening around education more and more, with universities that want to embed this type of knowledge into existing courses so that the future professionals, specifically from the hospitality sector, could integrate this, fresh from the onset, so they can hit the market with a clear understanding about what is feasible and what should be done in order to nudge the industry in a better direction. I would like as well to share, I think it's important in the context of that discussion, what we have been learning about why such a slow pickup by the hotel industry, the hospitality sector in particular. And this is directly related to three key learnings that we actually got from all those projects. The first one is that hotels and restaurants without a proper comprehensive food waste monitoring system tend to believe that they are wasting 3 to 8 times less than what they're actually sending to the bin. So that means that there is a huge perception gap between the reality of the amount of food being wasted and what they think, their belief. Hence the importance of having a monitoring system in place. The second aspect is about the buffet. This misconception across the industry that buffet waste is the main reason for food waste in the hospitality sector, which is not the case. Once you have comprehensive system, and here I'm looking at hotels, across all the back of house, from everything from receiving to storage, distribution to preparation, portioning, etc. Buffet, whatever remains on the buffet at the end of the shift, only represents 10 to 15% of all the food that is wasted. So it's an important part, but it's clearly not the biggest chunk of the issue. It's just a visible part of the iceberg, and I think this is important to clear this out. And related to what Ben has been sharing, what we have been observing out of all of our projects is that the cost of food waste represents 6 to 14% of revenue. So Ben, you were talking on average about 7%. We have seen firsthand very large hotels, when you calculate the actual cost of food waste, because we have seen like ridiculous amounts, up to a ton and a half, up to 2 tons sometimes per day. Well, this has a massive financial impact. And in our case, we've seen that between 6 to 14% was the cost of food waste compared to revenue. So this was just to share with you a big picture from those 7 years of experience in the sector. But thank you for inviting me, Ben and Law, and in particular to share about the pledge on food waste. So the pledge, interestingly, was some sort of a spin-off from a project that we designed for the Thai government on food waste prevention. It was a program that was designed for hotels and convention centers on minimizing food waste. And initially we had set a whole set of different guidelines on what would be the necessary condition in order to trigger the subsidies from the government. And actually our plan was at the time too ambitious for the government, so they decided to water it down and make something much easier. But that was the first step towards creating the pledge. And the pledge on food waste then became a standalone solution that has been designed for restaurants, outlets, canteens and restaurants to cut on food waste, save on costs. And it is as well designed to nurture the ecosystem of food waste solution providers. And that fits very well in the context of our discussion here with Erin and the city of Vancouver. And I will explain why. So implementing the pledge helps to address 4 of the SDGs, 2, 12, 13, and 17, and has been endorsed by a few international organizations, including the International Food Waste Coalition, Friends of Champions 12.3. And as I mentioned, is actually ready to be deployed for restaurants, hotels, and canteens. So how does it work? Basically, it was there are 95 criteria and 7 key pillars. Those 7 key pillars are basically the structure of the certification revolve around process documentation. What is the policy? What are the objectives of the organization? What are the action plan that are designed and implemented? Then there is a lot of focus on employee commitment. If you don't get your employees to understand first why this is an issue and what is expected from them, you won't go far, basically. So there is a great focus on employee commitment. Food waste monitoring system, as I mentioned earlier, is fundamental as well to keep track of the performance of your organization while fighting food waste. If you don't have this, you don't measure, you can't really see if you're improving. Then there are two separate sets of strict guidelines on what are the practices that should be in place, what are the procedures that should be in place. Again, from the moment the food is purchased to the moment it is received at the back of house, distributed between the different areas, stored, prepared, portioned, served, and then disposed of. So all those steps are kind of structured into or sliced into separate sections, and those criteria are helping to ensure that a minimum of food is lost or wasted at each of those what we call critical food waste generation points, all the way to the consumer. Now, there are two interesting aspects, I think, in the pledge. The first one is we're talking about stakeholders. A fundamental part of the stakeholders in nudging the industry towards more responsible practices are customers. And there are requirements set under the pledge to get customers to engage you as a professional, to engage with customers, but not as finger pointing or blaming. This doesn't work and would hurt your business, actually. More in terms of nudging, influencing, inspiring the diners that are eating at the restaurants or at the hotel in learning about what you are doing. And that's a nice way to kind of influence them in their own behavior. And the last part, which I will cover a bit later, is about post-consumer, because the way the pledge is designed is exactly with the same food waste hierarchy pyramid that was presented earlier, with the preventive part representing 90% of all the requirements set under the pledge. But the rest is about what can you do once you have prevented for your own benefit food waste within your organization. What can you do to actually ensure that food is either redistributed for human consumption, transformed for animal feed, or upcycled / transformed for energy or compost. There are 4 different levels of achievement, from bronze all the way to all-star, depending on how far the organization is actually pushing the boundaries. So minimum requirements is there are 78 criteria, and then there are 17 and a bonus that helps those that really want to push to get a higher score. Everything is online, set on the platform, where you get access to all the criteria, explanation, guidance about expectations from the auditor, and tools, supporting tools that are important as well in tracking the actual implementation. Main benefit, again, clearly financial benefits are here in terms of cost per cover. So between 3 to 5% reduction in cost per cover. So not food cost percentage for the professional of the industry. This is 2 different indicators. So 3 to 5% reduction. Of course, reduction of the environmental footprint, and really a way to showcase that your restaurant, your canteen, or your hotel's outlets is caring and is doing better. Is going the extra mile compared to the competition. Successful pledgers are actually getting access to communication toolbox. This is at the end of the process, because the main part of the effort is to cut on your costs, but then of course to share what you are doing. Has been implemented by some renowned actors. Marriott has been very active. We had recently the Athénée in Bangkok, who received 100% compliance, the first all-star ever with Chef Jacob. So that made quite a bit of noise. We have some Michelin star restaurant that joined, like Bolan, who got certified recently. Let me see if that very 40-second testimonial video is actually working. If it's not, I'm gonna skip it and we can share at a later stage. Because yeah, it seems that it's the slideshow is being temperamental. Example of a case study. This is fine dining restaurants in Denmark that has been implementing. Interestingly, most of the culinary team didn't believe that they could achieve much, because they were all preparing only 2 sets menus, so everything was under control. But at the end, well, they managed to reduce food waste by 7.2 tons over 12 months. Food cost was down by 1.2 points, and reduction of food waste per cover by 45%, representing $35,000 savings over the year, which is always nice to have in our pockets. On the food waste monitoring side, I would like to mention that there is an interesting technology that is embedded and that is offered for those that sign up for the pledge, which is composed of two components: the Android app that is used as a data entry point in the kitchens to qualify waste by professionals, and then all the information are sent to the software to do the data analysis. The Android app, I could have done the demo on my phone, but probably easier here. It is being used to basically say, okay, where are you? You can have multiple recording points if you are a hotel, let's say, but if you're a restaurant, you have your tablet in the kitchen where you enter the shift. Is it lunch or is it dinner? Then you enter your category. Is it spoilage, preparation? If you have buffet, there is buffet or plate waste. And then you will enter what type. So is it meat, seafood, dairy, vegetable, etc. And finally, just the quantity, 2.1 kilo, for instance. You click and the information goes directly to the software, cloud-based, that will give you indication about your current performance. How are you doing on a day-by-day basis compared to your baseline? So the baseline is calculated after 7 days of operation or 1 week or more if you like. This is something you can define. And then it will give you interesting information, basically key answers to the questions that are left unanswered so far, which are how much, when, where, what, why, and in terms of food waste. How much food is wasted, when, where, if you have several locations, what is going to the bin and why is that so? And then are you improving your performance over the time or not? So in 3 clicks, basically, this is happening. I think Ben will share more information if you're interested as well in this. The only requirements, and that's really highly beneficial, if you just need a tablet or even an Android phone. An Android phone does the job in terms of data entry, and then all the rest is in the cloud. Forgot to mention that it got the Solar Impulse label recently, which we're very happy about. Last 2 points, I will skip that video to not take too much of your time. Very importantly, and in the link, to link this with the presentation by Erin earlier, what is very interesting, I was talking about the 7th pillar of the pledge, is that it works de facto as an aggregator of food waste solution. Food waste solution providers are usually pretty fragmented. An interesting aspect with the pledge is that, as I mentioned, those restaurants or hotels that are implementing the pledge will be invited to start looking around at who are the other solution providers that can help them. Either any apps that provide any end of the shift special deals for consumers. Either any organization that collect food surplus for charity. Either any tech solution providers that can help implement a digital food waste monitoring system, or either any pig farms, insect farms that may be interested in collecting your organic waste in order to transform it. So that helps to federate, I would say, those players around this program. And importantly, we're talking about nudging the industry, and I think that's something that Erin may be interested in. The fact that the end score for each applicant of the pledge is a very specific score out of 100 creates this benchmarking system, let's say amongst hotel groups or restaurant groups, that will help to identify who is performing well, and as well create this friendly competition among different business units to see those that are performing the best. And that really helps to drag everyone, like I would say, up and gear the entire industry in a I would say more responsible practices. So the last aspect is the fact that with this multi food waste solution providers aggregation, it is a multi-level benefit sort of solutions, not only for restaurants themselves, but as well professional organization, international NGOs, for instance, city councils, bloggers, or civil organizations that can find a solution that works for those that implement it, but have, I would say, other rippling benefits for the society. That's it.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. That was really inspiring. I don't know if there are any like burning question, and if not, I'm gonna share.
So we have one question from Daniel Roy. I don't know if you see, I can read that. It's more for Erin, I think. As a consumer, what constitutes the unavailable food waste for each sector? What constitutes the available food waste?
Thank you, Laura. I did answer that question a little bit earlier about avoidable and unavoidable wasted.
If I can add maybe on this, because
sure,
indeed,
please do. Please do,
no, just our experience, and it's not a blueprint, but we tried in the past, because we had this reaction from kitchen professionals saying, hey, you're recording all food waste, but there is a great deal of it that is non-avoidable or non-edible. So we're like, oh yeah, well, that's right. So let's try differently. So we tried to have another category, which was non-avoidable, or we call it non-edible. And that opened up a lot of doors and a lot of challenges, because in the kitchen environment, you have a lot of people that are from various origins, and food waste is highly, I would say, related to the interpretation of, as you said, Erin, is food wastage, is not waste until the moment that food ends up in the bin. So what may be considered by some, like, let's say, potato peels may be considered as unavoidable. From others in the UK, they will eat it. So there is a lot of component about perspective, definition of what is edible or not. Technically, you can eat an orange peel if you want to. It's not nice, but you can. So is it non-edible? No, it is edible. So we decided that's way too complicated and defeat the purpose, the end goal being like understanding the situation and then reducing it as much as possible, while then finding all the right solution down the line.
Okay, and we have another question. How do restaurants accommodate the waiting step in terms of both space and staff time constraints?
Well, in the situation where they use the tech, basically they use, it's a 5-step, 5 clicks, not even steps. We did the training last week to 12 chefs, 6 of them Michelin star, as we're working with a Michelin guide in Bangkok, or in Thailand actually. And what they are currently doing is they set up a monitoring system, and Ben-in-law will be able to explain that more in details. But they have a recording station in their kitchen, and they have this tablets on top of their bins, where they're gonna pick, okay, which location they are, and most restaurants will have only one location. I don't know if you can see my screen. If they have only one shift, then it will have only one shift available, let's say dinner time. Then they click, okay, what I'm recording now, can you see my screen, Ben? It's good, yeah? Is, for instance, preparation waste, and they need to, it's offcuts from vegetables, and they need to record 5.3 kilos, and they record 5.3 kilos in a couple of clicks. Then the information is being sent to the software. So it's not that they're going to go to the station every 2 minutes. They have system with containers that go into bigger containers for once at the end of the shift that the people are weighing. So it's really not time consuming. And like anything like hygiene or quality service, it's a habit that must be embedded. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a must now. I mean, that's where the industry is going.
Thank you, Benjamin. Well, last question, because we just have the time to do last one. What kind of public education is planned to inform consumers of the kind of change in behavior needed to make an impact on this issue?
That sounds a little bit like a question for me. Would you think so, Laura?
Yeah, I would say that's Erin, yeah.
Okay, great. So Love Food, Hate Waste Canada, I mentioned the national campaign. is about raising awareness and changing behavior for residents, consumers. They've been very successful in looking at that. They just completed a survey, actually, and those results were released to the media, I think, last week, about what was happening during COVID, the peak of COVID-19 pandemic. And interestingly, 94% of Canadians see reducing food waste as an important issue and something that they're trying to implement in their own lives. So I think the thing is that a lot of us think about food waste and what we can do, but we still are having challenges implementing that in our lives. And so Love Food Hate Waste Canada has a great website that offers tips, and people can actually contribute their own tips and hacks for leftovers. But it's going to take time, but I think that the big thing is that we need to talk about it. We need to have conversations with our relatives and our friends and our kids and our neighbors to raise awareness and also learn from and also to learn from each other.
Thank you so much, Erin and Benjamin. And by the way, yesterday was the world's first International Day of Awareness around food loss and waste. So it's a great link with this awareness topic. Just, I'm going to be very brief on how Rethink2gether can help you. So as I mentioned earlier, Rethink2gether, we're a sustainability consulting company with this expertise in food waste prevention. And so we've been working on different projects around food waste in British Columbia. But what I wanted to point is that I became the first accredited consultant in Canada related to the certification, the Pledge on Food Waste. So it's freshly available in BC, and the community of accredited consultants is growing around the world. If you want to know more, I highly encourage you to go to the website, thepledgeonfoodwaste.org, to know more about the certification. And this app, so just to remind the key benefits, of course, the financial benefits is the main one, but on top of this, there are many additional benefits, including decreasing the turnover rate in an industry where the turnover is pretty high. And the latest studies show that if you have high sustainability ambition, basically you can decrease your payroll by 2%. So you have additional benefits on top of the one that we were mentioned earlier. And if you so basically now you have two options. So food waste is such a big issue. We need to work on it. So either you do it on your own, and I encourage you to go on our website. We have some free solutions, not only for consumers but also for businesses. Or you can hire food waste experts like us or Light Blue who can provide you some support, not only to have a food waste strategy to quantify your food waste, but also to be able to get certified for the Pledge on Food Waste. I would like just to take a moment to remind you that I know it's a challenging time, and COVID is happening all over the world, but cutting your expense is the same as earning money. So this is a crucial point to be able to recover. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And we still have a few minutes for some more questions. And if we didn't have the chance to answer your question, please feel free to write us an email with your question. We will answer all of your questions for sure.
Ben and Law, thank you very much for the invitation. It's great to have you over there. We hope we can build more bridges between Southeast Asia and Canada. You guys rock. So I hope that people got inspired today, and we'll contact you.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Erin, thank you very much as well.
Yeah. Oh, you're very welcome, and great to hear more about your program and how it was developed. And I've heard a lot about the pledge from Ben and Laura, and so it's great to hear even more. And also, it's great to have Ben and Laura as part of our community now. I think I met them in the early days of their arrival in this city, and they're becoming, you know, very active members of our community, real contributors. So thank you for having moved here and doing the work that you're doing.
Thanks,
Thank you
Erin.
so much, everyone. It was a pleasure to share those insights, and don't hesitate to reach out to us again if you want to know more, and we'll be happy to help you. And if you wanna also have our free solution online, don't hesitate to reach out. We have a quiz, we have a toolkit for consumers, so that's free. Everything is available online. Thank you so much, and have a great evening or day, depending on which part of the world you are based in.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
much.
Merci
Bye.
encore.